Oh,
That's how we know.
oh,
Sorry, everyone. If anyone's here, we meant to go live 25 minutes ago, and I made a mistake. Oh shit, dude.
we were
Yo,
babbling for 25 minutes, and
yeah, and it was really good. And I was already thinking, man, I'm gonna make this into so many clips. Because when it's really good, I can make a lot of clips. When it's not, when it's all over the place, not really any clips. So now what the fuck are we gonna repeat? Shit, we said a lot of good things.
I mean, the topic of God in general is something that's so big, Graham. I mean, we can probably jump anywhere in the pool and would still go to the deep end.
Yeah. Maybe we can bring up this stuff again a little bit later. We're talking about Allah and God. Is he real or just a figment of our imagination? We're going to try to answer questions, but we fucked it up already. And if somebody wants to call in, that's cool too. There's a link in the chat.
Okay,
and we're trying to talk about all the variations of God. You know, not just Allah. And the reason is, one problem a lot of people have is they're kind of siloed in their own conception and their own history and from their own culture. So like from the Arab culture, that's Islam, that's Allah. I'm from America, so I saw a lot about Christianity, but there's so much more. And if you look into history, ancient Greeks, Zoroastrianism, the Jews, and the Abrahamic God, that's 3,000 years old. Man, I feel like I just summarized everything in 5 seconds.
Well, let's actually back up a little bit and think about when we're considering a concept like whether it's Allah or God or whatever manifestation that you have in any of these cultures. One of the problems that we really have with it is that it's such an elusive thing to define. So,
oh, that goes right into all my things that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah. So when let me actually say a couple of things about Allah versus Yahweh, for example.
Yahweh is the Jewish God?
Yeah, Jehovah.
And that's after an evolution, right? They had multiple gods first.
Yeah, supposedly it's the same God, but nobody, no Muslim would ever call Allah Jehovah. Even though they would supposedly be talking about the same God who sent the same prophets and so on, and has the same connection with humans.
Yeah, because they say that everyone's Muslims, right?
Yeah, including all.
So that would mean Allah is also the same Yahweh.
Yeah, but they never actually ever call him Yahweh, and that's actually a thing that I have a problem with when you say, well, Allah actually means God. Yeah, sort of. If you're looking at the literal meaning, yes, that's what it means. But if you go back to the time preceding Islam and look at the inscriptions for what the Christians used in order to refer to their God, nobody ever calls him Allah amongst the Christians. They would call him Al-Ilah. And supposedly Allah is just a contraction of the word Al-Ilah. But they made sure that it's a distinction between the two, because eventually there is a kind of a pantheon in the history of the Arabs that includes Allah, who had daughters, supposedly, who is sometimes invoked in certain situations, but is a kind of a God that is somewhat transcendent. So yes and no, it is the same word as God, but it's not quite so.
So you said, what is it? Different kinds of gods. I want to use the word theory. There's many theories that claim there is a God, and each theory needs to be treated on its own. And to be clear, you know, we could make as many as we want. Like the number of gods that exist today that humans have come up with, it's not static. Tomorrow there can be another one. And the point is, we're now, I don't know, a few thousand years into this from the first time somebody made a God theory. So there's a lot of them. A lot of different cultures made them. And I was saying earlier, maybe don't talk about this yet. I was saying earlier that before we went live for real, we accidentally lost 25 minutes. That first time the God theory came out, the first release, God 1.0, it had a lot of features with it as a package. You know, it wasn't just, oh, there's a God that created the universe, and that's it. It wasn't that. It was also stuff that packaged up older ideas, like the soul and the afterlife. Those are older. And we know this. We talked for 5 minutes at least about how we know this. But it's things like we've been burying our dead with articles, and we think the reason they did that is because they thought they're going to need them in the afterlife, or it would be nice to have them for the, you know.
Yeah,
that's why we think they're doing it.
But I think it's worth emphasizing again some stuff that we mentioned before about this idea of animism. So many of these gods that eventually formed, they started by looking at different specialties. So a god that was taking care of the rain is not the same as the god who would take care of the wind. And the idea of monotheism that eventually created the complicated amorphous gods that we see today was basically this unification of all these gods to come up with just one that's supposed to take care of everything. Sometimes there was a kind of a compromise that actually happened, both in Christianity, Islam, both in Judaism rather, and Islam, where you ended up having some of the functions that were delegated to gods now are given to God with his helpers in the form of angels. But it's still essentially divine beings that exist to perform the same thing.
Trick the Boss says, "Hey guys, love what you do. Thank you for letting us know. Helps us feel like we're doing the right thing and helps us keep going. Are you Muslim? Neither of us are. We used to be. John Lovell. There will be a big gathering of the atheist tribes at the Christian Science Museum called Noah's Ark on What is this, an advertisement? Self-promotion. I should have read it first. Hey, I want to say something real quick. I want to
go back to that comment. Are we talking about Ken Ham and his Noah's Ark? Why would there be a gathering there? I didn't actually know.
I don't know what this is about. I don't know. But anyway, what I wanted to say was, you know, part of what we're trying to do is give people that know the least. Like, Brent, imagine the 13-year-old just found out, hey, I could be looking at sources outside of my parents and finds this, okay? So let's say some basic things. How many gods are there? So I asked ChatGPT, how many gods are there? And I worded the question unintentionally weird, and he said, there aren't any.
So you discovered it immediately.
That's not what I meant. I said, I meant that people believe in or have believed in. And he said thousands. Humans have believed in over 3,000 documented gods across cultures and history, including gods from polytheistic, monotheistic, animistic. That's the one of the things you were saying. And tribal traditions. I don't know what the hell that means. So that's a little bit of a big. So there's 3,000 theories, documented ones.
The number that usually gets thrown around is actually 4,000. So usually the way that this gets framed, you're an atheist not believing in 3,999 gods.
Yeah, I think I heard that from the comedian Ricky Gervais.
Yeah, he's not the only one who mentions that. I think this
he makes it funny.
Yeah, I think it originated with Dawkins, but I'm not entirely sure. because he actually does mention that at the beginning of Outgrowing God, his book. In any case,
We're not. Let's see. My parents are from the Middle East, and for Sama, he was born and raised there for what? First 20 years of your life?
25.
25. I don't know why we should be answering personal questions, by the way. I don't see how it's relevant. Anyway, I'm trying to be nice, I guess, answer people's questions. We said we're going to answer people's questions.
Well, obviously this is leading somewhere, so I'm assuming that there's going to be some kind of a follow-up.
Go ahead and predict the next question then. Or tell me in the private chat. Let's see if you can predict the next question. All right.
Well, let's see. Let me send some kind of a follow-up to this question, to this questioner. Are you a Muslim?
Oh, and are you from the Middle East?
No. Are you a Muslim? Just asking that.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to get into now the most serious part of all of this. The way in which we would judge a God theory. Okay. And I think it should be, I mean, we should consider epistemology. I think people should consider the way it's done in physics. So let me explain a little bit. This is in epistemology and in physics. Because that's kind of the same thing. Right? And actually, I would say epistemology improved a lot when the epistemologist was studying how physicists make physics theories. But not just them, but also like Freud and the psychologists. And that I'm talking about Karl Popper here. He was trying to figure out the difference between genuine science and pseudoscience. Anyway, so let's consider all the theories on a scale. Okay? On a scale of how much stuff is in it. All right? On the let's say on the left end is very little things in the theory. So let's say the most pure version is there's an entity that created the universe, and that's it. No more else. No more extra features. There's some people who believe in a God like that. That's on one scale. On the other end of the scale is a God theory that says a lot of things. A lot of things. Islam is a version of that. Christianity is, Judaism, all that stuff. Although they try to take stuff out by saying stuff like, "Oh no, not the Hadith, just the Quran." You see how they're. By the way, everyone listening, do you know why they do those things? Because the less stuff that's in it, the less stuff that could be contradicted, the less critical evidence you can find. So what they do is take shit out. And the people that believe in that smallest version of God on the left end of the scale, generally those are people who believed in a God theory that had a lot more features in it. And then they weren't convinced by a lot of those things.
I personally don't think anybody can actually believe in a God fully unless they have some kind of a religious background to begin with. I don't think that the idea of a God comes up naturally. I mean, you can have some kind of an anthropomorphizing of nature.
Well, everyone's affected by it in a sense. I don't know who was born in an atheist family that never saw God ideas in their society.
No, what I mean is that you could be raised in some society or some environment that doesn't emphasize that, and you don't end up with any kind of a true religious belief. But those who emphasize certain ideas that are related eventually to the traditional conception of God, I think almost invariably these would be coming out of a religious tradition.
So we're both atheists, and he said he's an atheist. Well, I don't know what classical sense means. Same guy as a which is what, Nabitno. As former Christian, I only respect New Testament. Old Testament is by no means a book you want to make morals on. So I don't know what point you were trying to make exactly that was altering what I was saying, but what I was trying to say was there's one flavor of God is it has only one feature in it. It is that there's a God made the universe. That's it. And then there's everything in between that has more features in it. And I bet you everyone has believed in all of those things. And the reason people take out features is because having features means there's more opportunity for critical evidence to rule out the theory. And people
you're giving people too much credit, actually.
Okay.
I think there is probably going to be a portion of people who would think that way. These are going to be a little bit more progressive in their thought, but eventually, if you look at the traditional way, how these are usually presented, whether we're talking about Islam, Christianity, or any of those systems, there has been over the centuries an ability to adapt to all sorts of questions that you might throw at them.
Yeah, instead of noticing a contradiction and then trying to fix the theory so that the contradiction is not there anymore, what they do is fudge it so that they ignore the contradiction.
Yeah, so imagine that you have this really fragile house of cards that is really built over very, very shaky foundations. You want that shaky foundation to still be there because it's a really irrational thing, but you really want it to stay there. And so in order to start adding details, you keep adding a stick here to bolster this side.
Yeah, let's do an example for people. I'll do one of mine. You know, I knew that the Quran talked about jinn, and I remembered something my grandfather told me, who, by the way, now I think was an atheist when he told me this, but he's a closet ex-Muslim. He said the Quran is written for the smart people and the dumb people. And he said the smart people read between the lines. And much later, in my 20s, I heard that when I was like 10. Much later in my 20s, I came up with a concept that I think was from that. When I heard about the jinn stuff, I was like, okay, that's symbolism. Which, by the way, I do for a concept like demon, although I don't, it's not a demon. It's just like sometimes I say to people, don't bring out your demons because then my demons will come out.
Yeah.
I mean that symbolically. These are ideas in our heads. Or like software, pieces of software in your brain running. Okay. So where was I going with this?
And they are that until people start giving them personalities. And that's actually one of the problems that you have with the conception of God to begin with. So you might say, well, look at how this living being is formed. It looks like it is intelligently designed and so on, until you actually start taking this seriously and start saying, well, if it's intelligently designed, there has to be some kind of a designer. This idea then morphs into some kind of an intelligent being that's outside or oversees the universe and is controlling all that. So it starts, like you said, you're talking about something symbolic, some kind of a hint behind what you're seeing. And then you start...
well, here's where I realized it didn't work.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because there's people that actually believe that shit. And it's not just a belief that doesn't matter and doesn't affect your life. They do things like, well, for one, they believe they were possessed by a jinn. Looks like somebody's trying to get on here. Let's see. Let's try to talk. I'm just asking them what they're wanting to get on for.
Yeah.
And I can't talk and type. Can anyone do that, by the way? I think if I try it, both of them don't work.
Well, most people think that they are good multitaskers, but in reality, we're really horrible at it.
Hey, let's bring him on then. He said yes. I'm gonna go ahead and bring you on then. Hello. What is it? Bioscope.
Yeah, I just created my channel, but I'm been agnostic for years and years, and I try to find the real God.
Mm.
When I when I was in a college, I read physics and the other things, and I never read Quran translation. I just read the Arabic words. But somebody give me some sort of awareness that I have to understand the Quran as well. That's where I become agnostic. When when I read the Quranic verses, it's telling me a zero sense to believe in that type of God.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that? What does that mean? Zero sense to believe in it, and how did that lead you to agnosticism? Why not another religion? Why not atheism? Why not try
All right, one
to?
step at a time. Let him talk.
Go ahead.
No, that's okay. Yeah, so the thing is, there is a commonality. When I talk commonality, like Adam and Eve's story, and there is no substantial evidence of that, and it's against the science as well. Like you take the somatic cells from Adam, which is a rib, and there is a germline and somatic. So the germline can have X and Y chromosome, but somatic has only one gender. Either it's a male or a female. You can't get out a female from a male. That's the first problem. And then you need to have egg in order to get embryo. You need to fertilize egg. So that somatic cells, regardless, if I take out the somatic cell and I try to clone, I still need egg. So when use egg, then that's where I can get an embryo. So I don't know where the god get the embryo or the egg without having a female. That's another problem. So just that type of things, like the shooting stars, that's the first thing, the scientific errors, I mean. The other issue with Quran, or any other holy books, they looks like talking like a human. Like when I read Quran,
Yeah.
if you entering to Muhammad home, you you need to be going when the meal is ready, and then when you finish the meal, you gotta
You know,
discuss right
a
away.
lot of the gods had a you know human traits, like God gets angry.
Oh yeah, that's another thing that
Yeah, does it make sense that a god would get angry?
it's a human behavior. We can, pissed off sometimes, and like if you say something against me, I might be saying, "Hey, I don't like you."
How about even wanting worship? Does that make sense? Something a god would want?
I don't think us. The problem I was trying to find might be there is a God, but I never able to get the answer of that. That there is a God, and then why would I worship if I don't know He contacted us or not yet?
Yeah. So I usually have issue with agnosticism as an actual viable position, especially when it's directed towards God. I can understand
Well,
agnosticism that's directed towards existence as a whole. When I would say, well, I don't know how existence came about. I don't know how life came about, assuming that I don't have any of these answers and I want to keep that open. But I don't necessarily find that there is a need for God to explain any of that, so that I would need to take a position uh, towards that particular aspect. I'm not saying that your position is right or wrong. I'm just saying that in my view, I usually have trouble understanding when people say that they're agnostic, what they actually mean by that.
Yeah, so the thing, because science is still not able to find the God, and the science says we don't have any proper answer for the inflation, even though the mathematical model, which is a big bang, is still, it's just a hypothesis. It's not a fact.
Yeah,
So
but science is not looking for God.
that's true. That's true. I agree with you. But the thing is, when we are talking with the creationists, and when we are saying there is no evidence of God, they are trying to put their God by showing inflation, Big Bang, these all things. And that's where I don't want to stuck in there and just say, okay, I'm agnostic, show me now proof of your God. If you prove me by your holy book, then definitely I can worship that. But if you cannot, then why would I need to even listen to you?
So Usama and I are atheists, which means, I guess, like he said in a second ago, we don't have the position of, what is it? I don't know if there's a God or not. Yeah, and what I mean by that, and maybe this is different words that Usama would use, and maybe it's even a different structure. I've considered all the God theories. I've even created my own, and I refuted all of them. They're all dead. That's it.
Yeah.
Somebody could come up with a new God theory. I'll consider that. Maybe I'm wrong. But I think that story is dead.
But at least we know these all religions presenting their theories are failed, because none of them are, are classified, or none of
Yeah.
them are provable.
Yeah. So we're on the same page on that front. Yeah.
Right. I'm actually atheist, to be honest with you, but because when I'm talking especially to the creationists, I just pretending to be an agnostic, because I want to move forward. I don't want to stuck in there. And when they are presenting Big Bang, especially when you talk about Islam or those religions, well, when you look at the Quran, where it says he created the earth within 2 days, then he moves towards to the sky, and the sky was a smoke. It wasn't form. So it's not the Big Bang theory. Big
Yeah.
Bang theory is entirely different. Then he created the sun later on. It's not happened. So the earth and sun been created at the same time. But there is some problems in this mathematical model. Now we discovered that there is a lot of problem. That's why we can't say it's a fact. But these Muslims or some people, they are just keeps arguing, now it's a fact, and they are presenting their Quranic verses or whatever the religion belongs to them. They are presenting, and I told them, what about if the Big Bang theory later on it falls under the scientific microscope? Then what your position is gonna be?
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, when the problem with it's not just Muslims. I've also seen something similar to some extent with people trying to extract things from the Bible and come up with the same kind of reasoning. We have to understand that they're trying to salvage essentially what they have and trying to have their ideology survive at a time where you can clearly see that if you take things that their books are saying seriously, then they have to be considered to be wrong. It's not an issue of saying, well, yeah, maybe. No, it has to be wrong. And so they have to come up with all sorts of weird explanations that try to forcibly come up with something that has this ancient text from the Bronze Age, or if you're talking about the Quran from the early Middle Ages, late antiquity, to coincide with what we know today. It's to be honest, it's embarrassing that there are people who are trying to do that. Less so when they try to think about it symbolically and to say, well, probably if we don't give this, if we don't take this as seriously as that, maybe that would go. Maybe that's better. But it's really appalling to see when people try to make these ancient texts fit what we know today.
Okay, guys, I gotta interrupt. We have two more callers, and we don't have a lot of time left. So, Bioscope, if it's okay, we end with you right now and take another caller.
Thank you.
Just a last comment. Then thank you very much for giving me opportunity. If this is a really God, he should know where the human came from. That's the first thing. He wouldn't be saying that human came from Adam and Eve, because that's going to be inbreeding, and inbreeding itself is a big problem.
Yeah.
So I don't think any religion is presenting a proper God or a true God. So religions are just based upon fake stories and other things. So I agree with you, and thank you very much for letting me talk.
Thank you for coming on, and you're welcome in the future to come on again.
Got you. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Bye-bye.
All right, next one. Did it work? Did I do it? I don't know how to pronounce your name.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just added that name now. Can you guys hear me?
I didn't want to say RRR. I just had to sound it out.
Right. So yeah, I'm nice to meet you guys. It's the first
Nice
time
to
I'm
meet
seeing
you.
this channel. I just came up on my YouTube recommended. So I'm actually calling from India. I'll just give a short introduction. So I'm from a Hindu family, but like I'm not a proper believer per se, because there's no compulsion that we have to do something because I'm a Hindu or whatever. I guess you guys know about that. So as I grew older, I was like moving away from religion a lot, kind of questioning a lot of things. So at one point, like when I talk about this to like religious people, the main question that they bring up is that if there's no religion, where does your morality come from? Which is a very stupid question, but like I don't know why they ask that, and they keep telling, morality comes only from this book which was created 2000 or 1500 years ago, whatever. So like, why do people actually believe that morality comes from their religion, or are they just like cheating themselves to believe it that way? So yep, if you guys could answer that.
Usama, you want to take it? I could say stuff, but
I think this illusion is everywhere. Even in the West, you can see that people believe that if it weren't for the Ten Commandments, I don't know, people would be killing each other, as if "Thou shalt not kill" is something that was invented at the time, and before that, it was just people killing each other. It's the idea of having some kind of a source that is outside of humans that sanctions these particular actions as positive seems to be something that has become so ingrained that people really don't want to even think about the human agency that's available there. But if you look at it, even from the perspective of religious people, all religions have some form of punishment for doing something that's like killing or stealing or whatever it is. If that's the case, then what is the actual meaning of that injunction? How is it that this is different from the civil laws that we have that would control how people behave towards each other?
let me argue their side, because they got to be punished later. Because if they didn't get punished in this life, or if they were victims in this life and they had a shitty life because of that, they need the punishment or heaven in the future. Come on, man.
Well, if they actually believe that this is going to be the case, what sort of purpose do these religious laws that punish
to catch 50% of the crime happening? The other half gets handled later.
And so the people who commit those crimes are supposedly non-believers. Because if they do believe, then they should have that kind
They're not really believers. If they're doing those things, they're not really believers. That's what they say too, right?
Yeah. The problem with the statistics, when you look at the statistics for prisons, you usually see that atheists actually form a very small percentage compared to people who really are believers. Especially in prisons, you see that people become really strong adherents of religion, and it doesn't seem to make sense then if these people.
Yeah, sorry. Is that like, that's another interesting point? So in prisons, when people become a certain religion, do they think that like if you become this religion, your past sins will be forgiven? Are they kind of like trying to justify and kind of think, okay, I have a good life, and like, is that what's happening?
Yeah,
and it happens with all sorts of religions. I know people do it with Christianity. They led a life that was a lot of things that they now may be ashamed of, and they weren't ashamed of it before, but they are now. And then they come out Christian, and it helps them feel better internally because it says you're forgiven.
Yeah.
But externally also because now he gets validation from other Christians. So he feels less ashamed now.
Yeah, and if you look at from the perspective of Islam, for example, you have people who go on pilgrimage. Supposedly, this is going to completely cleanse you from all the bad deeds that you've done. So it's a kind of a justification for you to go do whatever you want, and then at the end, well, I can get.
That breaks the whole system there.
Yeah, that exactly is part of the explanation why it is that people who have these religions that have some form of forgiveness have this idea of immorality built into the system itself.
And by the way, I'm gonna take a step back now and just talk outside of this discussion about Allah and God. I believe in forgiveness, okay, and I believe punishment is evil, and I don't believe in any God.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that was the exact point that I was thinking as well. Because if you feel that you should not kill or like rape a certain person just because your God is against it, then that makes you a very bad person. That was my first point that came into my mind. But I never had the thought that you should do good so God will reward you or whatever. But okay, I'll quickly ask my second question, which is, so in all the books, all the holy books, like there are stuff that's written which is like clearly unscientific. It's like it's clear as day that it's not scientific. But still, especially on social media, Instagram or Facebook, when like a new scientific or whatever comes out, people still come and try to defend, oh, this is written in my book so many years ago. And like there are a lot of people supporting it again, and especially some outrageous ones like the moon splitting into two or
so
whatever.
let's first say there's a good sign there, okay?
Yeah.
It means they care about science and think it's good. And now they're trying to co-opt it and put it into their religion. If they had no respect for science, they would just shit on it first, which a lot of people did in the past. A lot of religious people, when a new scientific theory came out, they would shit on it. Okay, and it's more only very recent that religious people, when I say recent, I mean a few centuries.
I'm pretty young, so this is new to me. I'm pretty young, so this is new information to me.
Which part is new?
The part that people said that scientific theory, they didn't accept the scientific theories, because the time that I saw, people were just kind of trying to mix it with religion.
Yeah, that's very recent. That's modern times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they used to kill scientists. Like, imagine we were in the time of people killing scientists because they were, presenting theories that contradicted the religious conception of the universe. And so many of them, they were killed, You can go back very far in history that was happening, not just in the Islamic world. And, in those times, I can't imagine people saying, oh, look, a new scientific theory came out. Yeah, let's go up to and put on a religion. They were getting murdered.
Yeah.
Opposite of it.
Makes sense. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, okay. Yeah. So those are my questions. Thank you so much. I'll be watching the stream. I think a very interesting person is waiting. Thank you guys. Have a great day.
Thanks for coming on, and you're welcome another time.
All right. Sure.
All right. Bye-bye. Okay, we have a third person. Gregory, if you're ready, putting you on right now. Hello, Gregory.
Hello. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
I'm doing well. Yeah, I'm just calling in maybe to offer a little bit of my perspective on things here.
Sure. Go ahead and tell us what you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about Islam and just my experience. Like when I was working in college, I worked at the Nashville airport, and I worked with many Muslim men, and they had a good impact on me. I thought these were nice men, and to this day, some of the things that we talked about still resonate with me. So I've had a little bit of a different experience with Islam and from where I'm coming.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think probably we should clarify. We mentioned that before. We're not talking about Muslims themselves. I mean, Muslims like any other group of humans. You have good people, you have bad people, and that's definitely not where we're coming from. We're talking about the negative impact that some of the ideas have on the lives, even the lives of Muslims themselves. So when you're looking at the religion as it manifests on the ground, there are so many different things that you can see as positive, but you're also going to be see some negative things. But beyond that, if you're really someone who cares about the truth, about what's actually real, you have to really examine what the religion is saying and compare it to reality, and that's where the conflict starts to appear. Now, we're both of us are talking from a scientific background, and so this idea of truth is eventually going to matter a lot. And if it has a very big clash, like in the examples that we were just considering just now, things like miracles that don't make sense, claims of scientific ideas that don't actually coincide with reality, this cannot be considered something supportable.
Yeah, I kind of understand, I think, what you're saying a little bit about the miracles. And I do want to point out that, that we are storytellers as a people. Human beings tell stories, and science, commonly puts itself forward as if it's doing something other than that. But I do notice that, this idea of the Big Bang, and the birth of the universe and its ultimate demise, it is in a story form. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so to try to put forward science as if it's doing more than telling us stories, I'm not sure that I don't. Yeah,
you think our religion is science? That's not what we're saying.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that though.
Well, no,
kind of like what you were saying, like we're using science to argue a bunch of things. I have a worldview.
Yeah.
Scientific facts is a very small part of it.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, aside from the fact that when you're looking at many of the narratives that you have in any kind of scientific theory, it is in a way a story, in the sense that it's going to be giving you an idea about how a certain phenomenon happened. But that's not the entire thing. The story is not the entire thing. You have certain predictions for that theory. You have certain measurable things that you can go and verify. You have ways of falsifying that if it contradicts other scientific facts. So it's not entirely a story in the sense that, okay, here's a story, you don't believe it, then you don't believe in science. No, here's a story, go check it. You have all the tools to go check it. If you see that there are contradictions, by all means go and verify that.
So let's talk about it like this. Science is, or let me talk about religion first. Religion is, if you put it into two categories, every religion, I mean, two categories inside the religion. There's a bunch of claims it has about reality. Then it has a bunch of claims about how we know things. Two separate categories, okay? And when we talk about religion, we're usually talking about the claims about reality, not so much the claims about how we know things. But in science, a lot of people think that when we say science, we're talking about the claims about reality. But no, science is the method. How we know what we know, that's the main part. The conclusions we reach about what reality is like, that's changing over time. And to be clear, even our process of judging things is changing over time. It keeps getting better. How we know what we know, that's getting better over time.
Well, is it? I mean, there are times when I look back through history and I can see that maybe there were some ways of. Oh, did you want to jump in here?
No, I was just waving hello to someone that said hello.
Yeah, I think there were times in the past that maybe things were done better than they are today. I mean, I look at the way I could.
I'm talking about the best knowledge. I'm not talking about like the average human or anything. Does that make sense?
Somewhat.
Go ahead. Go ahead with your example.
Sorry to interrupt. Sorry.
Yeah, I think about how we, for instance, how we treat the mentally ill. You know, back in ancient Greece, you know, they were looked at as almost like touched by the gods. You know, their utterances were put up there with that of oracles. You know, and now we just lock people away. There might be a better way of doing things.
And I call that pseudoscience, by the way.
Okay. I'm just saying there's a different way of looking at it.
Let's actually not give some kind of a blanket statement for what happened for Greece compared to what we have right now. So it's a little bit of an overstatement saying that people who are mentally ill are locked up now. There are certain situations where this is the case, where the medical establishment determines that these people could be a danger to others, danger to themselves, or that
it's better than 80 years ago. I can tell you a lot about how it's better.
Well, I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole there. I just want to say that you were talking about that things are getting better and better. It seems like you have this idea that that there is progress being made, and that's a controversial.
Well, I was talking about the category of
statement.
I was talking about the category of how we know what we know. The field of epistemology, the scientific approach, that is getting better over time, regardless of whether or not 99% of people don't know it.
But is it? I mean, you're the one making the statement, so I'm asking for your proof for that, because I don't see that.
We've been talking about it for like 20 episodes.
Okay, I'm new to the channels.
Huh?
I'm new to the channel.
Summarize all of it right now in a few minutes, and we gotta end in actually like 10, 15 minutes.
Okay. Well, I did want to say I want to meet you on common ground, because, you know, the Shahada starts with La ilaha. There is no God. So we can agree up to that point. You know, there are good days that I have where I go further and say, but, you know, except God himself, you know. So there are times when I'm not so sure, but that's kind of where I'm at. I do in part believe in Islam and the other religions as well, Christianity, Hinduism, and Buddhism, and some of these.
There was a guy, Osama, maybe you can remember his name, that came up with the concept that, and he was a Muslim, at least outwardly, I don't know, who came up with the concept that all religions are from God, from Allah, and what we should be doing is, if I understand what he said correctly, taking the good from all of them and removing the bad from all of them. I don't know how he arrived at that conclusion, but that sounds pretty damn good to me.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. We can agree with that. And you know, it talks about in Islam that, you know, God, Allah put people there so that we may know each other. You know, not just so we can be separated, but so that we can come to know what other people believe and feel and think. Yeah.
I'm sure that we're actually on more common grounds than you think.
Okay.
That's actually probably one of the misconceptions that people might get when we say that, oh, we're deconstructing Islam, or we're doing something that's what we're actually trying eventually to do is we're trying to help and benefit the same people that we come from. Being ex-Muslims does not mean that we are anti-Muslim. We're actually coming from the same place where these people come from. We have a lot of commonalities with them.
Our family members are still in that.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I had a similar. Well, at one point I considered myself atheist. I guess in some ways I still am, but it was frustrating when my family members didn't agree. You know, they just stayed in their religion of origin, and so I think
it's
well, we're not yelling at each other here, so we have a lot of common ground there. We don't like being yelled at, and we're not yelling, so there's some common ground. You know, there's other common ground, like between like a lot of people, and it's not everyone, but you know, you walk up, you see people on the street, in general, we're not fighting each other. No one's murdering each other. I mean, that does happen. But, you know, in general, it's not happening. There's a lot of cooperation and, you know, at least, again, some places are better than others, but like for
the most part, even if you look at the history of humans in general, despite all the wars, despite all the killings, despite
there's more cooperation than fighting.
Without cooperation, without actual genuine cooperation with most of the people, you wouldn't be able to see where we are right now.
Nothing would be functioning. We wouldn't be where we are today without a lot more cooperation than adversarial interactions. And you're being nice to us, we're being nice to you. It's all common ground.
Yeah. And that's what I noticed too when I was working with Muslims, is that you know, I had a certain picture in my mind of what it was like to be Muslim before I started working, and it wasn't matching up to what I'd been taught before, you know, about.
I wonder if a lot of the movies in, I guess you're from America, a lot of the movies, American movies, the way they present Arabs and Muslims, is it a lot of just bad scenarios rather than good ones?
Yeah. I haven't gone to the movies in a while, but you know, like, if they're even in any of the movies, you know, it seems to me.
Or news too, like when they report on news, is it always bad things instead of good things?
I hear a lot of bad things from different places. I don't know exactly where, you know, I know I'm on the internet more than I am on news, and it's just a bad portrayal, and I don't.
So me and Usama, we were Muslims, okay, and we were good guys.
Yeah, you are good guys.
Terrorists. I mean, there are some of those that later became not terrorists anymore.
Well, here's the thing: when you don't actually put a face to whoever it is that you're talking about, that's where the demonization starts to take place. You start giving all sorts of weird ideas about whoever it is that you're thinking about. You start thinking that this group of people is going to be stereotyped in a specific way, that they're going to be behaving in a specific way. And so the surprise happens when you're actually in the same location as some other person and you're interacting with them for the first time to see that, well, this is actually the same thing as me. This is a human being that has the same concerns, that has the same things that delights them, etc., etc. So it's that facelessness that creates this problem.
Yeah, there's a lot of dehumanizing going on, and you get a lot of rhetoric, propaganda, where people will take a whole group and say they're not human. They liken them to animals, liking them to pigs, liking them to something else. And then it makes it easier to treat someone as though they're not a human.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the internet makes it, in some ways, makes it a little bit worse because everyone can just stick to their own feeds, you know, the people that they normally check in on, you know, their Twitter feeds and things, and then it reinforces that, you know, and everybody.
I would say part of the problem is those social media algorithms, though, right?
It easily makes it possible for you to create your own echo chamber where you're essentially talking to people who have exactly the same idea as you, and so you end up isolating yourself from others who might be saying something different, including what might actually be reflecting the truth of the matter on the ground, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
So let's see. We have 5 or 10 minutes left. Is there anything else you want to talk about related?
Well, yeah, because I'm not a scientist or anything, but you know, I'm more interested in religions. That's just kind of how my mind works. You know, there's some religions that don't really you know, have a God, you know, believe in gods like Buddhism and things like that. Maybe it's more about, in some religions, it's not even about what you believe necessarily. It's more about the rituals and the rules that you follow. So have you looked into any of those religions, or are you just kind of more interested in science? Or I don't know, that's my question. I guess I don't know.
I'm curious about, you know, God and religions, but I haven't seen one that looks any good. I see flaws with all of them.
Let me say for myself, if I'm looking at the purpose that religion is supposed to be playing in people's lives, and looking at other human endeavors, I don't see anything in particular that religion can do that other endeavors cannot do. And that's why I'm not seeking a religion as such. I might benefit from what a religion says about a certain idea, but I don't think necessarily that this idea is specifically going to be available only through that particular religion. Being good to others is something that so many religions preach. That's fine. I'm all for that. And I would have no problem collaborating with people and working with them, given that they have that kind of common ground. Seeing that this might be an incentive for me to adopt their ideology or view of life or religion as a whole, that's a little bit of a stretch, because I don't think that they are related in a way that if I don't believe in the whole religion, I won't be able to be good to others. That's not necessarily the case. I can be good to others doing my own thing. But at the same time, if I think that this person would be good to others if they believe in that religious system, by all means. I'm not saying that this person has to leave their religion just because I don't subscribe to it.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. I guess maybe we should end it here.
Appreciate you having me on.
Okay.
Yeah, you're welcome
for coming
again.
Have a good one.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Osama, you want to talk about anything before we go?
I guess we're done here.
Do you want to talk about this again later? I have more to say. I had more.
Yeah, I mean, we barely scratched the surface on this.
Yeah. We might do this again, part 2, and maybe even continue going if more people want to come in and talk.
Yeah.
And I have some very exciting other episodes, which maybe I can tell you right now real quick. I want to do one, humans, were we created or did we evolve? Islam versus science, Big Bang, evolution. Another one, jinn, are they real or superstitious nonsense? Another one, miracles, do miracles imply Islam is the true religion? I don't know if you noticed, but what I'm doing here is putting the main topic as the first word.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Even though we've talked about all these things, but never as its own topic, make it the first word. The rest is just, you know, describing what we're going to talk about that word.
Yeah.
Another one. Islam/religions versus state education systems. Useful stuff plus systemic control. That's the title. That's going to be a good one. And who knows, maybe some of these become multiple series too or whatever. But okay, I think we got to stop now. I got to go pick up my daughter. All right? Yeah. All right. Bye, everyone.